beautiful day. Quite windy in Cape Town, but we're enjoying the blessing of today. And we are picking up where we left off on our podcast series on active citizenry. And today we've got our popular guest, Utar from Civics Academy. And later on, we'll be joined by Ulerato, who's also one of the directors from Rivonia Circle. We would have been joined by one of our councillors from Ekailicha Ward 94, City of Cape Town, or Miss Xolisa Peter, but due to circumstances that would be under control, she could not join us today. We are hoping that she will be with us in the near future. Uta.
Hi, Nosipho. Thank you again for inviting me to the podcast. I'm very happy to join again and hoping that, I will speak to somebody from Rivonia Circle a little bit later. And ready to kick off.
Awesome. So we've had three different topics, which you were the first one. You were one of the, or rather, you were a panelist in the first topic. English sometimes comes and goes.
Yeah, same with me. Don't you worry.
On a Friday afternoon. Okay, so I remember we unpacked democracy and the meaning of an active citizen. And the following week, we sort of zoomed into the concept of democracy as a system. Is it working in South Africa? And last week, we looked at, because we, in the Easter period, we looked at the role of the church, rather, or the meaning of the power of the cross when we address, or rather when we look at the pain of society and active citizenry. And then today, we just felt that, the concept of active citizenry sounds exciting to people who are passionate about it, perhaps people who understand it, not that other people are not passionate about it. And the question is, for those who are not, yet passionate about it, those who are not yet embracing the concept of active citizenry, how can we then get them to understand the significance of it? Because, like we were chatting earlier on, we can teach it, we can produce powerful material on active citizenry. But if it is not correctly understood and contextualized by the citizens of our nation or our country, we will not achieve the desired results. Because ultimately what we want to see is everyone playing their part wherever they are. So today, let me invite you, Utar, to please just, take us through again, maybe the meaning of not necessarily being an active citizen, but yes, of being an active citizen. Somebody said to me, "Oh, so Nosipho, you mean if you say they are active citizens, then you mean they are non-active citizens?" And I'm like, maybe not in that way, but that's debatable. Over to you, ma'am.
Wow, big questions, hopefully big answers as well. Look, I mean, let me start with a very small example. So we live in a family. I've got a partner, we've got 3 kids. And in order for this family to work, everybody needs to play an active role. We have rules and regulations by which we live together. We want the kids to play an active part in it. They need to clean up after themselves, and they need to, be kind to each other and help each other, so that we as a family work. And I think like a family is the small picture of what society is. We all want to work, we all live together, maybe not as close as in a family, but yes, sometimes very, very close. And we need to work together, and everybody needs to play an active part in order for this construct that we call society works. So if I just sit there in the corner and do nothing or just observe, that's also playing a part in society. You know, I'm not saying that that's not a valuable member of society, but well, what does it not do? It doesn't give you the power to change anything if you're not happy with how the family works. So if my kids are not happy with the rules and regulations, they raise them. At dinner, they say, why do we have to do it like this? And they come up with suggestions. Can't we do it like that? That's being active. If they wouldn't do that, we wouldn't know that they're unhappy. We couldn't change anything. And the same thing counts for society, I think. So if we, as the citizens, don't raise our concerns and don't say, hey, look, we don't like the way that our streets look like, or we're not happy with the rules that are made because they exclude this group and they discriminate that group, then how is the government, how are the people that we've given the power to rule, how are they supposed to know that something needs to be changed, right? They just go on with the same routine. And so that's one reason that we want to be active, because if we're not active, if we're just passive and sit there and expect things to run, then they won't. And people won't know that that some things bother us and that we cannot live by with the conditions that we're in. And so I guess being an active citizen, I mean, we've spoken about it before, but it starts in a very small, it can start on a very small level. It means being aware of the people around me, of my environment, not to litter, not to throw things away, because if I throw them away, then they will bother other people. And to take action if I see injustice, if I see something that's not right, then I want to protect my society, my community. And so I need to speak up. I need to say, hey, something that's going on here is not right. We need to change this so that everybody is happy and that everybody can live together in peace and harmony. I mean, even at international level, if we go beyond South Africa and our society, we've got the term global active citizen. That means that somebody is involved in even bigger movements and promotes something that's good for the whole world or for the global community, so to say. For example, environmental sustainability or fair trade. So people have active citizenry is not only something that goes within one country or one society, it can become global. We want to reduce poverty, not only in South Africa, but globally. So there are global movements where people get together and say, okay, what needs to be done in order to reduce poverty or to eliminate people trafficking and slavery and things like that. And I think you said, yes, we can produce material, but what if people don't engage with the material? That's a different challenge. I think there's two steps. The one is that
maybe they don't understand how critical the need, for active citizenry. Maybe they don't understand why it is important for them, to participate in the development of their society.
And that's why I think that education is very key in this process. It's maybe a different method that's needed. Maybe the way we present the material, maybe we need to break it down more to take the people's context into account. But I do think that what is needed is civic education that helps us gain knowledge on these matters, to understand, okay, what are my rights and what are my duties and how can I participate in municipal processes, for example? What does it mean? What is a municipality? What is a councillor? What's a ward? And how can I interact with that and to change anything? Or, what does it actually mean, democracy? What is a democracy? What is a government? If I don't understand these bigger concepts, then I might also be afraid, or I don't feel empowered enough to actually be active, because I think, well, I don't understand the whole big system, and it's a very abstract system. And maybe people haven't learned it at school for whatever reason. Most schools don't teach it properly. which is a different topic to discuss. But I think key, civic education is key. We need to understand the bigger concept. The bigger concepts need to be broken down so that we can understand them, we from our level, where we come from our background and our context. And only once we understand those concepts and we understand how we can hold the people that govern accountable, then we can believe in a system where, oh, if I am active and I hold people accountable because I've got the knowledge, it's based on my actions are based on knowledge. That knowledge is something that I've learned and I've been educated with, then I can change something. Yes. Maybe just very short.
Wow. Yes, you've touched just now, you mentioned something that reminds me of the meeting that I'm coming from with the Minister of Small Business Development and the Deputy Minister addressing the community of Khayelitsha. And this young lady, she's a civil engineer, and she's been trying to get subcontracts, and she was angry, not angry, but she was rather very sad, to experience, because she said,
I can't hear you. Nosipho, you're on mute. Sorry, I can't hear you anymore. I think you're on mute. You're still on mute. No, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now you're back.
Technology. So this young girl says, my pain who are using their political signs to sort of block us from accessing opportunities. And she said, I've been applying for tenders, to subcontract when there's development in Khayelitsha. And she said twice she received.
Again. Now.
She said, look, I continued to apply because I believe that I've got a skill for this. I know how to do the job, and I am competent enough to do the work, and I meet the requirements, the tender requirements. So she boldly said, I am not scared of anyone who is going to intimidate me to promote corruption. Now, this is something on the side, but now I'm bringing it back to people embracing active citizenry or rejecting it on the basis of not understanding the power it has. If we can understand, embrace it, and participate in it, no one will feel, that certain opportunity will.
No, it's good.
Other people will, because this girl is bold enough, but imagine if it was a different person who would have felt intimidated and decide to withdraw and not participate in the economy or in the development of the economy of Khayelitsha. But let's park that one.
Yeah. But you're touching a right thing. If people are intimidated by either not knowing the basis for the argument. So if like, for example, if we don't know what democracy means, and if we don't know what an executive is and what local government does and what it's responsible for and what it's not responsible for, then we don't feel, we feel intimidated if somebody comes and says, okay, what do you want? But if we know these things, then we can feel empowered, and we know, okay, I've got the knowledge. I can feel strong enough to participate and to contest and to challenge the status quo. So I do think knowledge is power, and it starts with knowing what we're talking about. And that gives us the strength and also the self-esteem to get up and to do something. And I think in a lot of communities, people have felt disempowered, and they have, they don't have the economic access that they would like to have. They make, every day just counts to feed the family and to survive, basically. Their whole mindset is not ready to think about beyond their own family. So that's something that is very specific for South Africa, I find. I mean, there are lots of countries, but especially in the marginalized communities here, the people don't have the capacity, the mental capacity to be active, because their whole life is about getting the kids into school, surviving day by day, dealing with the challenges that life imposes on them. And so you tell them, why aren't you more active, and why don't you hold your municipal accountable? Then they say, well, because I just don't have the energy. And I understand that. And that is something that's on a completely different level of discussion, that as something that, we can teach and teach, but if the tummy is empty, then there is no need to teach about civic education. Yeah.
Sure. My goodness. And I think with other people, it's not even a matter of, in some cases, yes, a matter of not having, mental capacity to face these issues head on or embrace active citizenry. But I think also with some, it's a matter of, a thin line between loyalty and the truth. Meaning, I'm loyal to you, and that are voted into power, as much as I see that, but this is not right. So I think loyalty to politics becomes, to the citizens of any nation, for that matter.
Just say the last part again, you broke off there.
All right, I'm saying loyalty to politics my device just keeps on freezing.
And it keeps on muting you.
So my point is, over and above what you've just alluded to, I think what is another contributing factor is loyalty towards, our politicians or our government, whereby I know, I see, I experience what you're doing is not right, but I don't have, my loyalty does not allow me to call you into order as a government.
Yeah, that's probably another aspect to take into consideration, which again, I find is something that we can only combat. I think something that we can only combat with education, because only if people understand that what is more important than being loyal to politicians because we are of the same ethnic or linguistic background, is that these politicians do the work that they're supposed to do, that they're promised to do, and that they are therefore to do. And only if I understand how the system works and what the role is of an executive and the legislative and the judiciary, then I can actually go beyond this, let's say tribal loyalty. I think, or loyalty because they've always been around and that's the only thing I know, Yeah.
So in the work that you've done.
Again, on mute.
Which communities are you working with, or have you worked with in the past?
So we are not so much on the ground anymore. I think we used to be, before my time, that we went into different communities, mostly in the Gauteng area, because that's where Civic Academy was based before. And we did a lot of dialogue work in smaller communities, working with other youth organizations to empower youth to become active citizens. And we were teaching and training facilitators and train the trainers. And now we're looking more in, we've got all this material produced, all of our videos and our podcasts on all these different aspects. And we're actually trying to promote the material nationwide. So whoever wants to come and work with us, we're here. If they want to use our videos, they're obviously open source. Everybody can access it. If they need training or want facilitators to be trained, then that's what we do. We work on an approach where people come and approach us, and then we find a way on how to collaborate together. So we are working with educational institutions. We've done a project with the Department of Higher Education for students, where we, again, I think I've mentioned the last time, where students of the subject life orientation, of which citizenship and active citizenship is a big topic, and students said, we've come across the general opinion that it's a boring topic. They don't understand it, and they fail the subject just because they, not really interested in learning. Why must I learn this? And then also lecturers were a little bit helpless in how to teach that subject, either because they themselves did not have the background knowledge, and the material that they worked with was from, 20, 30 years ago, not up to the modern standard and to the needs of the young person today. And so we, together with experts, created this lecturer guide based on our videos, where we created fun and interactive classes, role plays and scenarios, and they have to create a voter campaign, and they have to come up as candidates and having speeches, and it really addressed the students' activeness and their backgrounds. So, for example, during COVID times, they had to build tippy tanks and sew masks, and through that, learning the concept of being an active citizen in relation to the context that they live in. So this lecturer guide that we've developed, also then we've trained the lecturers on how to use the guide. So not only to show the video and say, okay, this is what a government is, but to actually take the video apart and let the students engage with the material in a different way. They had to write a rap song on what it means to vote, or they had to play out different scenarios on why it is important to be a responsive citizen. And so this is the first year this year that we are going to use the guides in the lessons. So far, we've trained the lecturers on how to use the guides. And now the lecturers are going to use them in the class with the students. And we've already had some good feedback where students actually found the topic citizenship quite interesting, and they could finally relate to some of the concepts that they were taught. So we're hoping that this is going to be an success. But that's exactly what I said before. We can teach something, but sometimes it's also important on how we teach it. What methods do we use to bring such a big concept of active citizenship and democracy, the rule of law, to bring that down to each person's background and to their level of understanding. Everybody is different and everybody grasps concepts differently. And so we need to find ways on teaching it differently. And especially with the young people, nowadays, everything, they're on social media, they're active online, they know the digital world much, much better than we do. And so that's their medium. That's how they want to interact and how they want to engage. And that's how they find interest in things. So we need to adapt to that world. And if we want to create active citizens, then maybe start there and say, okay, then let's do a social media campaign or something like that.
Oh, yeah, I was actually, you've touched on the question that I was going to ask in terms of the success stories since you guys have been facilitating these trainings, or rather producing, sharing your content. What are the success stories? I mean, this is powerful. Mm-hmm. I'm smiling and I'm like, oh, wow. This is interesting. It's a fresh
I think we're still at the beginning. But we do see, I think, especially since last year, and also the the unrest that happened last year in July, and then the local government elections and the low voter turnout, especially amongst the youth, a lot of organizations have come and approached us and said, look, you've got that material. We need to work together. We need to train people. So different municipalities are using this to train their councillors, so that councillors understand better their role, because actually councillors receive very little formal training. And then they get approached by community members and they sit there and say, okay, that's maybe not my role, but okay, I'll help you. And then
it's reasonable as a community member. It's reasonable for me to expect that my councillor, part of his responsibility or her responsibilities is to ensure that the community members in his or her ward receive such training, such information.
Yeah, so we actually done some councillor training a couple of years ago. It started before COVID-19, 2019, and then we continued 2020, where we took different ward councillors all over Cape Town, and they received some training based on our videos on very basic questions, what are municipal services? What is the municipal, what is a ward committee? What is a councillor, and what is the role and the responsibilities of a councillor? And then we spoke, during the breaks and stuff, we engaged with the councillors and we said, is this helpful? Is this training or is it a repetition of what you know? And lots of councillors said, well, thank you, because now, and especially part-time councillors receive very little formal training. They're expected to do a job that they often don't really understand. Where are the boundaries? How far can I interact with the community? And the community doesn't understand that the councillor has most of all a oversight function. And it's not a social worker. And that's often mistaken by the community members. And so the councillor faces tasks that he or she is actually not responsible for, and often doesn't know that he or she is not responsible, or knows it, but it's difficult to tell the community that needs him or needs her and say, okay, look, I can pass that information on, or I can pass that complaint on, but I can't solve it for you. So that's why community be educated better on who can they approach when there is a problem, and which issue goes into into which direction. And the same, the councillor must also know that, so that he or she can represent the municipality and present themselves and say, look, this is my boundary and I cannot help you beyond this.
So just give us practical examples, Tessa. Utar. I'm thinking of Tessa in my mind. Her colleague was supposed to join us. I don't know what happened to her. Now, I am interested to know briefly, what are those boundaries? Meaning, what are those specific responsibilities of the councillor, and what are the needs of the community that are not that do not fall within the responsibility of the councillor?
So the duties of a councillors are to represent the people in the municipality and to cooperate with other councillors to serve the best interests in the community. The community can communicate their needs to the councillor, and the councillor then communicates them, passes them on to the municipal council. They prepare and attend meetings where these issues are discussed, and they monitor the performance of the municipality. So that means oversight. They're watching that the municipality is doing what they need to do. And obviously they raise issues of concern with the relevant bodies and provide feedback on the municipality's performance, but they're not responsible if a mom says, my child cannot get enrolled into school, please do something about it. the counsellor can refer the mother to somebody and say, okay, well, then you need to go to the educational department and speak to them. And this is in your district or in your area. This is the authority that you have to go to. But the counsellor himself or herself cannot solve the issue and phone schools and say, can you please enroll this child into school? Or then counsellors are faced with one counselor told me that she gets calls at night when the music is too loud in the neighborhood. She must do something about it. That's not her responsibility. Call the police. Or whatever. There is the community complains that there is a drug den in one of the streets that they live in, and the council is supposed to do something about it. It's also, I think these are things that the councillor gets faced. It gets thrown at the councillor, please do something about it. Then the councillor doesn't do anything about it because it's not her or his responsibility. So the community gets disappointed because nothing gets done, but they just didn't know who to approach in the first place. That's why I'm saying it all starts and ends with education. If the community knows where to go with their needs, and if those needs are then taken seriously by the right body, then we can start build a healthy community and build more active citizens, create more active citizens.
It's a pity the ward councillor could not make it today, because my follow-up question then would be, when you speak of the ward councillor being a representative of the community members in their wards, now the consultation, when does it happen? How often is it supposed to happen? Educating community members within your ward, how often must it happen? And how must it be initiated? Must be the community members asking for these trainings, or is it part of the councillor's responsibilities? So I'm sitting here listening to you, and I've got all these questions in my mind. But I'm hoping that we're going to have a session again with him or her, whichever ward councillor that we get, because it's important that we know this information and not just hear about it, but understand, internalize, and be able to implement, because I can't really support something that is still fuzzy up there. I hear people talking about active citizenry, but I don't understand it. And now if I've got a ward councillor, affirming that, yes, indeed, it's supposed to be like that, so that I am now able to hold him or her accountable, having been equipped and capacitated to do so. So thank you so much for highlighting that. I feel empowered already. And after this conversation, I'm going to call her, the ward councillor that was supposed to be here, and say, we need to make sure that you come and, educate us. Let's hear from your side as a ward councillor. So, yeah. Because I also noted a question, where is the bottleneck then? If ward councillors are equipped, with this information, which would help. In fact, I think it would even make their lives easier, because if community members in my ward know their responsibilities and their rights, and I am also, delivering services the way I am expected to, then I think I would actually be keen to make sure that I capacitate my people, that I'm leading, so that we work together,
Yeah, so I think that's then the role of the municipality. So we've had municipalities in the past approaching us and saying, look, I think it was mainly before the local government elections where municipality said, look, we're doing community meetings. There are like regular events once a week where they invite the members of the community and say, this is an information session. We'd like to teach you about the municipality and what a ward councillor is and how the election system actually works. If you go vote, who you vote for, and how does it work? And afterwards, once you've voted, what does a councillor do? And so then they've used our videos, because we've got quite a long series on local government where all these issues are explained. And municipalities can use it and can call in community meetings and inform the citizenry and obviously also the councillors and the staff of it's not only the councillors, it's sometimes other members of or other staff of the municipality that also need to be capacitated. And also, once we learn something 10, 15 years ago, I mean, if we remember what we've learned at school, we forget. So it's always good to pick up and educate ourselves again. So the one thing that Civics Academy would like to encourage is we've got the material, use it. And if there's an access issue, because not everybody has internet, there's always a plan that can be made. We're actually looking into creating a data-free website so that people can use it without using their data. So we know, especially in marginalized communities, data doesn't want to be used for educating, but rather to communicate the basic needs and to manage life. That's another step and another for another time.
You mentioned institutions of Department of Higher Learning. You mentioned what councillors that you've worked with, not necessarily worked with, but shared your material with. Have you ever been approached by the local churches, to use your material to educate their congregants?
We actually haven't. It's a very good question. We've once received feedback when we trained some of the lecturers for the TVET colleges with the lecturer guide that I was speaking about. And we received feedback that some of them were very active in their church, and they've taken the material into their church to train there or to teach the congregation. But no, we've never really been approached by churches for whatever reason, but there's always a time.
Yeah. There's always a time. Wow. Active citizenry. What is an active citizen? And I liked your illustration of a family structure. I mean, it's so practical that no one can say, but I still don't understand this concept. Because if you say everyone has got a role at home, and at times children are not always happy with the rules that the parents make, but they do have an opportunity to sit down and say, this makes me feel this way. When things are done this way, I feel this way. How about we do things differently? And I love that illustration. And it will stick with me forever, because at times, I'm gonna confess, I'm one of the people who sometimes feel that I'm actually very angry at how things are done in my country. And as much as my life on daily basis is on active citizenry, but sometimes I'm angry. Even if I share the content, I would share it, out of frustration. But now that's sober approach to say, look, yes, you're not happy. So we can either choose to be angry and destroy whatever is there, or we can look at things, identify what does not work, what does not make us happy, and ask a question, what will make us happy? In counseling, they ask a miracle question. If you sleep, or in whatever situation you're experiencing that is not making you happy, and then you sleep and something happens in your dream, and you are happy, suddenly you are happy, what would have happened? So they would make you then sort of try and envision, what do you think would be a solution to your problem? And how do we then bring that to life? How do we make that practical? What steps do we need to make? And you are so right. Without joining forces, without joining hands, without connecting minds and hearts, active citizenry will remain but a powerful concept, but it will never, ever, make any impact in transforming our communities, our lives, and our society. So that being said, I am challenged to change my attitude. Change my attitude. But I must say, with the work that I do, okay, we spoke about it earlier on, and I don't want to embarrass my colleagues. in community development space. But I must say, sometimes it hurts you, especially when people are educated, professionals, and they still don't realize the urgency of each person playing their part in transforming our communities, even in a smaller context where you are, but just commit to play your part so that our joint efforts could translate into, fruitful improvement and true development. So yes.
Yeah. Yes, I totally agree. And I'd also be very interested to speak to a counselor and maybe get somebody in from like Tessa Dooms, somebody who is an active citizen and works with communities and to empower people. There are lots of, I find in South Africa, there are lots of great examples. I think people are actually very active. There is lots of spaces where, especially women, play a big role in empowering other people, imparting knowledge, in trying to improve other lives. And so there are lots of good initiatives and projects. I think sometimes what's missing is to get all of them together and to let it trickle down, obviously, into the youth. I think that's where our main potential is. Kindergarten kids should start to learn what it means to be active and what it means to speak up and what it means to understand the concepts that of the society they live in, and then it needs to be continued in school.
Culture there becomes a challenge because I would teach a child, or a person would teach a child in the context of active citizenry or when to speak up, and the very same child at their home, they are taught that whatever an adult is giving you or whatever they're telling you is right. And now you've got a child that is seen as rebellious by one person, yet celebrated by another person, because they know when to express their feeling when something is not right, and to differentiate between what works for them and what does not work for them. And I think active citizenry boils down to that. What makes you feel like a respected citizen of this country, or human being for that matter, even if you are not a legal citizen of a country, but to be treated as a human being. So I think cultural issues, again, they need to be taken into account when presenting or facilitating this content, so that a child does not receive it, or rather does not get home. I'm talking now in a context of school. If you were to teach this at school and then a child goes back home, different setup, different environment, different teachings. But anyway, this is not to say let's not teach it, but I'm just saying let us be aware of other factors that might come to play.
Let's get teachers into the show and see what they are thinking and their ideas of how we can create and support active citizens.
And I think what counselors should actually create spaces. Okay, maybe not what counselors only. Civil society formations should be more intentional in bringing together in one room, parents, children. I mean, the broader community to be represented by different age generations, so that the conversation can really can reflect the true. Now English is gone again, so that our conversation could reflect the true representation of family structure, communities. Otherwise, if we speak to one group alone, in terms of age groups, to a certain extent, we might miss each other. And when we miss each other, forget if we're going to be able to work together. So I guess there are certain topics that we can discuss with a specific a segment in terms of age group or gender for that matter. But I think we also need to be intentional in having these joint sessions, joint conversations, so that we are able to also bridge the generational gaps in the process.
Yes, well said.
Personally, as we are about to close off, I've been wanting to ask you this question, and I think I'm going to ask it now. Personally, what motivated you to participate in Active Citizenry?
That's a very good question. I think I've always been quite active. I always raised my voice, even when I was in school. Things that didn't work out in school, I was very active in different school committees, and I was wanted to always change things from very early on. I don't think it was very easy for my parents a lot of the time. They probably would have called me a rebel, but I was always quite vocal about what bothered me and how things need to be done. And I've always had a sense for justice and for, you know, what is everybody's right, and to include everybody. I've got a mentally disabled brother, so we've always been a very inclusive family, and I think that's where a lot of these things come from. I was always interested in current affairs and democracy and society, how people live together, how people work together, what makes us all function and you know, be this great society that works and prospers. And so I think it continues through all my life. I've always taken that role, always been active in different community actions or initiatives, or I guess you can call it, NGOs, always done NGO work. It just continued through my life. And then when I joined the Hans Seidel Foundation, that project, the Civics Academy, appealed to me. It's something that I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about education, very passionate about education. I think education is the key to everything, and is a very powerful tool to keep a society alive and to a better society. And so those two things come together, being active and being passionate about education.
And did you get support, or how were you received? Yes, as you were growing up, challenging, you know, systems of injustice and all of that. How were you received? Generally, home, friends, neighborhoods?
Different. So I come obviously from a different society. I'm originally from Germany, and I grew up there from East Germany. So as I said, I think my home mostly regarded me as a rebel. My friends, I think, were very supportive. Also a lot of active friends. Then during school, so, you know, sometimes they found me too active and too running away with ideas. But in general, I think the environment was supportive from all sides. So I can't say I haven't been supported.
Okay, it feels like we now profiling you. I love conversation. Now I am trying to stop myself from conducting a personal interview now with you. Nonetheless, Utar, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your passion in educating people, and especially now in the topic of active citizenry. And I must say, every time I talk to you, I have a conversation with you, I get encouraged and I get challenged, most importantly, you know, to take active citizenry more seriously, and to be very intentional now in even my approach, or in whatever work I do in the community. But the power of education, as you kept on highlighting, education, because I'm big on doing, you know, I enjoy starting a project from scratch, work hard and see it grow and see it. I love that. I don't really enjoy joining something that is already in motion. That's my strength. I like starting things from scratch. But now I always miss the education part, you know, especially now when it comes to active citizenry. And I think we need to create that component to be very intentional about it. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, this platform is mostly about learning from each other, sharing information, having a conversation. Is not one of those platforms where we debate to prove each other that, to prove how right we are. No, no, no. In this platform, the main aim, the focus is to empower each other so that we go back and empower people, you know, at our respective spaces. So I really appreciate your time, your effort, your work, your commitment to the development of our society.
No, thank you very much for giving me that opportunity and to give Civics Academy another voice. It really means a lot to us, and we are always looking to reach out to people. And thank you for providing us with that opportunity.
And how do people get your material again? Your website again?
The website is www.civicsacademy.co.za. And you can also just Google Civics Academy and you'll find our videos on YouTube. We are on Twitter and Facebook. Yeah, so we're trying to put the word out there and people can just grab it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Nosipho. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend.
Yes,
bye.
You too.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for supporting us, and let's continue with this journey. And once again, I just want to encourage everyone who is always making time to tune into this podcast and other platforms that support active citizenry. Guys, let us take this thing seriously. Our communities, they are not going to change. If we talk about power, or rather, how do we say it? Restoring power to the people, or the government of the people by the people. So that means that people need to be capacitated in order for them to restore power back to themselves. Thank you.